Have you ever paused to observe two individuals, maybe people from, similar backgrounds?
Yeah, starting out with kind of comparable resources, maybe.
Exactly. But then you watch their paths and they just diverge, like, dramatically over time.
It happens all the time. One person seems to build this remarkable success, accumulates, well, wealth in a really broad sense.
Right. While the other person seems perpetually stuck, just grappling with the same old challenges year after year.
It's a pattern, isn't it? You see it and it makes you wonder.
A bit of a head scratcher for sure.
Yeah, and it's absolutely common. It sparks a lot of, well, introspection. I think our first impulse is often to look outside, right?
External forces.
Like luck, or, maybe they knew someone, or just being in the right place at the right time. We look for those visible catalysts.
Sure, the easy answers.
But as we've been, digging through the material for this deep dive, it becomes really, really clear. The most profound differentiator, it often lies way beyond just circumstances.
Exactly. And the sources we're looking at today, they really strip away those external things. They reveal something much more personal,
Yeah.
but also immensely powerful. The real engine behind these diverging paths. It's not out there.
Yep.
It's in here. It's mindset.
A mindset, right. That's the core.
And for anyone looking to understand not just what happens, but why some people flourish while others seem to stagnate, this is where it gets truly foundational.
And what's so compelling about looking at it this way is how your mindset, it's not just a fleeting thought, it genuinely operates like a fundamental lens.
A lens.
Or a filter, maybe. It's how you process every single bit of information, every opportunity the world throws at you.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Imagine like slipping on a pair of glasses, but the lenses are dark, maybe smudged.
Okay. Yeah.
Suddenly everything looks dim, doesn't it? Limited, perhaps even fraught with difficulty.
Yeah, the world itself hasn't changed, though.
Exactly. The actual landscape is the same.
Yeah.
But your perception of it, totally altered. Now, picture that same world, but through a crystal clear lens, maybe one even tinted with a bit of optimism, possibility. Suddenly, things that look like obstacles, maybe they reveal themselves as hidden pathways. Opportunities that were just invisible before start to, sparkle into view.
So it's not the external reality shifting.
No, it's your internal interpretation, your very mental construct of that reality.
So we're not just talking about, like, a passing mood or a temporary outlook.
Definitely not.
We're talking about something deeper, a framework.
A deeply ingrained framework, yeah. That determines how you interact with literally every facet of your life.
Yeah.
Your challenges, your resources, your relationships, your potential.
Wow. Okay. So today we're really embarking on a deep dive into this whole transformative concept, peeling back the layers of what people often call the wealth mindset.
Right.
And our mission, as we unpack all this really compelling material, is to extract some powerful, actionable insights.
Actionable is key.
Things that, if you really embrace them, really apply them, could fundamentally reshape your trajectory, profoundly influence your future. This isn't just theory, right?
Not at all. This is about understanding the mechanics of personal transformation.
Okay, let's jump right in then. To the bedrock concept, our sources lay out. It's this foundational dichotomy, and it really sets the stage for everything else we'll talk about.
The two sides of the coin.
Exactly. The poverty mindset versus the wealth mindset.
Right.
So on one side, we have what's described as the poverty mindset.
Okay.
This way of thinking is deeply rooted in fear, in a perception of scarcity, and just this profound sense of limitation.
So it focuses on what's missing.
Totally. It consistently highlights what's lacking, what could possibly go wrong, or, what just isn't possible. It sees resources as finite, dangers everywhere.
Got it. Fear, scarcity, limitation. And then the other side.
The wealth mindset, which is, according to the sources, firmly rooted in creativity, in an understanding of abundance, and in this relentless focus on solutions.
Okay, creativity, abundance, solutions. Polar opposites, really. And the critical thing here, I think, is to really grasp the profound impact of these foundational roots. Like, take fear and the poverty mindset.
Yeah.
When you operate from a place of fear, maybe fear of failure, fear of loss, even just fear of the unknown, your cognitive process is actually narrow.
Narrow? How so?
Well, psychologists talk about tunnel vision or threat rigidity. It's not just emotional, it's physiological. Psychological constriction.
Okay.
It limits creativity. It impairs problem solving. and it actually restricts action. Your brain literally stops exploring novel solutions as effectively.
So you get hesitant.
Exactly. Hesitant to take calculated risks, explore new avenues, maybe even trust your own ideas.
Hmm.
You get kind of paralyzed by the what ifs, right? Constantly anticipating the negative outcome.
And that can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, I guess.
Often does.
Yeah.
That's a powerful point.
Hmm.
It's like being stuck in a small windowless room, convinced there are no exits.
Yeah. Yeah.
When really the walls are just your perception, not like an absolute boundary.
Exactly. But the fear keeps you from even checking for the door handle.
Right.
Now, contrast that with creativity and a focus on solutions, the hallmarks of the wealth mindset.
Okay.
When your mental filter is geared towards abundance, towards actively seeking solutions, it doesn't just enable problem solving, it proactively uncovers opportunities.
Opportunities that others might miss.
Opportunities that others, operating under those dark glasses of fear, simply don't perceive. It's not just about fixing problems, it's about generating opportunities.
So it's proactive, not just reactive.
Precisely. Challenges aren't seen as these insurmountable obstacles. They're more like intricate puzzles just waiting to be solved. And each solution potentially unlocks even greater value. And this fundamental difference, it goes way beyond just making money. It's a whole approach to the challenges. Personal growth, work hurdles, relationship stuff, financial decisions, everything.
It's about having a bias towards growth, then. A bias towards growth, learning, and possibility in every single situation.
Okay, to really bring this home, our source material uses this, like, strikingly simple example, but it's incredibly profound.
Oh, yeah.
The $100 scenario.
Okay.
Imagine two different people. Each one gets exactly $100.
Same amount, same starting point?
Right. The first person, operating firmly within that poverty mindset, their internal monologue immediately kicks in. Something like, wow, okay, this isn't enough. This is all I have.
Protect both.
I have to protect it. I absolutely cannot risk losing it. What if I lose even $1? Their whole mental energy just fixates on preservation, on that deep fear of scarcity.
And you can see the immediate implications of that, can't you? That $100.
Yeah.
It's likely going to be hoarded, or maybe spent only on absolute necessities, or perhaps saved, sure, but with zero strategic intent for growth.
So it just sits there.
It sits there. The critical long-term implication, that $100, while maybe preserved, stays just that. $100, it doesn't grow, doesn't generate anything else, doesn't create future opportunities. The intention behind handling it is pure survival, loss aversion.
Which is understandable sometimes, but ultimately limiting.
Very limiting in terms of growth.
Okay, but then you've got the second person. Same $100, same starting line, but they're coming at it with the wealth mindset.
Different internal script, I bet.
Totally different. Their internal dialogue becomes a series of questions like, how can I multiply this? Where could I invest it? Even just a small piece. What skill could I learn, or what resource could I buy with this that'll generate more value down the line? How can I make this $100 work for me?
See? That's the profound divergence right there. It's almost astonishing in its simplicity.
It really is.
Same amount of money, identical resource. But the perception of it, the intention behind handling it, that creates entirely different outcomes.
One sees it as finite, something to guard,
while the other sees it as a seed. Something that, with careful cultivation, could yield a harvest,
So what might they do with it?
Well, the wealth-minded person might use that $100 to buy an online course to upgrade a skill, or invest in a small tool to kickstart a side hustle, maybe buy materials to create a product they can sell.
Or even just a book.
Or even just buy a book that fundamentally shifts their strategic thinking. It demonstrates that real wealth building doesn't start with the size of your capital.
Right.
It starts with the strategy and the intention you apply to it, driven by that underlying mindset. It's a shift from just consuming to strategically investing, no matter the scale.
And this brings us right back to that really potent analogy from the source.
The glass is one.
Yeah, your mindset is like a pair of glasses. If you wear dark glasses, you'll see everything is dark.
It's not just a clever phrase, is it? It feels like a foundational truth about how we literally construct our reality. And that analogy, it really emphasizes the conscious agency we have. We can actually shape our perception.
It's not fixed.
It's not fixed. Changing this lens, actively shifting your mental filter from scarcity to abundance, from fear to opportunity, our sources present this not just as a step you can take,
But the
first and most critical step toward building wealth in its most expansive sense. It's about consciously choosing the framework,
Mm-hmm.
the filter through which you experience and interpret reality.
So it's a choice.
It's a conscious choice. And it's not about, blind optimism or ignoring problems. It's about actively recognizing that your perception is malleable. It's adjustable. You have the power to adjust it.
And that choice ripples outwards.
It cascades through everything. How you assess a new career path, how you respond to a personal setback, how you strategically allocate your most valuable resources, your time, your energy. It's about training your brain to look for potential where others only see problems.
Okay, so if mindset is this powerful lens shaping our reality, the next logical question is, how do we actually build that lens of possibility?
Yeah. Where do you start? How do you construct it?
And our sources are clear. It begins with the fundamental building blocks of our inner world, our thoughts.
Okay.
This transitions us really nicely into what the sources call the architecture of belief.
The architecture of belief. I like
Yeah,
this.
it's this fascinating look at how our most, ephemeral thoughts,
Ones that just float by.
yeah, how they can, through repetition, through reinforcement, actually solidify into these enduring beliefs. And those beliefs then dictate our trajectory, essentially shaping our destiny.
Wow. How does this source illustrate that?
Well, there's this compelling story. Two people, similar dream. They both decide to open identical small coffee shops.
Okay, side by side almost. Same conditions.
Pretty much. The first person, starts with some enthusiasm, but then they start thinking about the practicalities, and their internal dialogue just tanks.
How so?
I'll never succeed. The market's saturated. Way too many coffee shops already. The competition's just too fierce. I don't have enough capital. That kind of thing.
Classic catastrophizing, right? Rooted in limitation, fear, seeing only the roadblocks.
Exactly. But then the second person, facing the exact same market, same competition, approaches it totally differently.
What's their script?
Their inner voice is more like, okay, let me try this. Market might be crowded, sure, but maybe I can make mine unique. What if I find an unmet niche? Or offer an amazing customer experience? Or source these ethical beans nobody else has?
Ah, so their starting point is creativity, problem solving,
Yeah.
possibility.
Precisely. And the outcome in the story. Just 1 year later,
Let me guess.
the first person's shop folded. A casualty of those self-limiting beliefs.
Wow.
The second person hasn't just survived, they've expanded, opened a second branch, thriving where the other person predicted failure.
That's incredible. And the source says the difference wasn't capital or market conditions?
Nope. Or even experience. The key difference, the source argues, was belief.
Belief.
Their preconceived notions, whether they thought success or failure was likely, acted like these powerful self-fulfilling prophecies.
Yeah, dictating their effort, their innovation, their choices, their resilience when things got tough,
One person's belief led to paralysis.
while the other's belief propelled them forward into action, persistent, adaptive action. It really illustrates that principle, doesn't it? How our subjective view of risk often trumps the objective data.
It really does. And this leads us to this crucial causal chain the source outlines so clearly. It's like a step-by-step progression showing how our inner world creates our outer world.
Okay, lay it out for me.
It starts with an initial thought, just a fleeting idea, an observation.
Okay.
When that thought is consistently entertained, reinforced, given mental energy, it gradually hardens. It
Yeah.
becomes a deeply held belief.
Right, it's ingrained.
And that belief, whether we're conscious of it or not, then directly informs the decisions we make. Or, just as importantly, the decisions we don't make.
Avoidance is a decision, too.
Absolutely. And those cumulative decisions, day after day, week after week, they inevitably shape our future. They determine our destiny.
It's a direct line. Thought, belief, decisions, future.
Exactly. A measurable path from mind to manifestation.
And if we dig into the how of that,
Yeah.
how does repetition actually cement a thought into a belief? It's about neural pathways, isn't it?
Tell me more.
Cognitive scientists talk about neural pathway strengthening or cognitive reinforcement.
Yeah.
Every time you entertain a thought, especially one with some emotion attached,
Yeah.
you're essentially firing and wiring neurons together, like building a path in a forest. The more you use it, the clearer it gets.
So repetition makes the pathway stronger, more dominant.
Exactly. It creates these deeply ingrained mental habits, what we call beliefs. And then these beliefs become subconscious filters,
Filters for everything.
pretty much. They
Cool.
filter how we interpret incoming information, how we perceive risk, what motivates us, our willingness to try new things, how we interpret outcomes, often completely without our conscious awareness.
So our beliefs are quietly shaping our reality from behind the scenes.
persistently, powerfully.
Yeah.
Like a mental blueprint guiding our actions.
Okay, so if we are, in a way, the architects of our own belief systems, how do we start actively participating in that architecture? Especially if some of those old foundations feel a bit shaky.
Good question. How do we become conscious architects?
Well, the source offers this really simple, but apparently very impactful, practical exercise to initiate an immediate shift.
Okay, I'm listening. Practical is good.
First, it asks you to identify just 3 negative sentences you frequently tell yourself.
Oh, okay.
Maybe a classic like, I'm just not smart enough, or I never have enough time for what really matters, or maybe success, that's not really for people like me.
Yeah, we all have those little gremlin voices, don't we? Those unexamined narratives running in the background.
We absolutely do. They're often so ingrained, just running on autopilot maybe for years. We never stop to challenge if they're even true.
So identify 3. Then what?
Then you consciously flip them, turn them into positive, empowering affirmations.
Okay, give me an example.
So I'm not smart enough becomes something like, I learn and grow every single day, and my intelligence is constantly expanding.
I like that. And I don't have time.
Maybe becomes, I can create time for what truly matters to me, or I prioritize my time effectively.
And success isn't for me.
Flip it to, I deserve success and I am capable of achieving it,
Yep.
or I'm worthy of success.
Okay, flipping the script. What's the psychology behind why this supposedly works so quickly? That feeling the shift immediately part.
Yeah, the source emphasizes that.
Well, it leverages principles like neuroplasticity, cognitive restructuring. It's not just wishful thinking or denying reality. It's an active intervention.
How so?
When you consciously take that negative statement like I'm not smart enough and deliberately replace it with the positive one, I learn and grow every day, you're doing more than just changing words.
You're changing the wiring.
You're actively disrupting that old established neural pathway. And through consistent repetition, you start forging a new one. The immediate shift often comes from that instant relief of mental resistance you feel.
Ah, like letting go of a weight.
Exactly, a sudden sense of agency, like, hey, I can change this thought. It opens up possibilities, right? Directly challenges those dark classes.
Yeah.
It's not just reciting words, it's an act of deliberate mental reprogramming.
Challenging the narratives that have kept you limited. That's a profound way to think about it. An act of deliberate mental reprogramming, really taking ownership of your inner narrative.
Yeah.
But, okay, while shifting the inner dialogue is clearly vital, what about the outer stuff? The actions? What are the consistent behaviors that actually build and sustain wealth in the real world, according to our sources?
Right, because thoughts are powerful, but action is where the rubber meets the road.
Absolutely. And it's crucial to clarify this fundamental point our sources make really clear. Wealth? True, lasting wealth. It rarely shows up like some magical lottery win.
Not overnight, usually.
For most people, it's not about hitting the jackpot. It's the consistent cumulative result of what the sources call small, consistent daily habits.
The drip, drip, drip.
Yeah, the relentless, deliberate drip that over time carves canyons, fills reservoirs.
And what's fascinating there is how powerfully that connects to compounding, not just in finance, right?
Yeah.
In personal development, too.
Yeah.
Skill acquisition. Small, repeatable actions are just exponentially more effective than big, sporadic gestures.
Why is that?
Because they build momentum, they build discipline, and they lead to those exponential results over time. Think about an artist practicing brushstrokes every single day versus, just occasionally.
Daily practice builds mastery.
Exactly. Each small session builds muscle memory, refines technique, deepens understanding. It creates this compounding effect. Sporadic efforts, even if they're huge, rarely achieve that same cumulative impact.
So the daily repetition isn't just about the output.
No, it's about hardwiring those desired behaviors into your subconscious, making them automatic, sustainable, and more powerful over time. Habit stacking comes in here too, layering new habits onto old ones.
Creating robust routines. Okay, so what specific habits do our sources point to? Habits consistently seen in people with a wealth mindset.
Well, the first one, and maybe one of the most foundational, is reading and learning. Continuously.
Reading. Okay, the material highlights this compelling detail. Most truly wealthy people read daily, a lot.
Like the Warren Buffett example.
Exactly. Famously spending 5-6 hours a day reading reports, books, articles. That's a huge chunk of time. Many people would say, I don't have time for that.
It's an extraordinary commitment. But what's really key is the type of reading the sources emphasize.
It's not just finance.
Not just finance reports or market analysis. It's Any book or article that expands your perspective. That's the quote.
Expands your perspective. Why is that so important?
It highlights this crucial insight.
Mm.
The goal isn't just narrow expertise, it's broad knowledge, cross-disciplinary thinking, continuous intellectual expansion,
Okay, and why is that breadth valuable?
because it's essential for identifying unconventional opportunities, for connecting seemingly unrelated ideas to solve complex problems others miss, for adapting in this constantly changing world.
So reading fuels creativity and adaptation.
Absolutely. Reading isn't passive. It actively expands your mental models, gives you new frameworks for understanding people, markets, everything. It fuels your mind with diverse concepts that were raw material for innovation. It's mental expansion as a strategic asset. Real breakthroughs often happen at the intersection of different fields.
Okay, that makes sense. What's next on the habit list?
Intricately linked, actually. Time management.
Ah, time, the ultimate resource.
And the directive from the source is deceptively simple, but really powerful. Every minute counts.
It's like a cliche almost.
It does, but when you genuinely internalize that, live by it, it fundamentally changes your approach to productivity, to progress.
How so? What does that look like in practice?
Well, a wealth mindset doesn't just see time as, something that passes. It sees it as finite, invaluable, irreplaceable, like the most precious capital you have.
Okay.
And that perception leads to hyper-intentional prioritization. High-value activities, things aligned with your goals, aren't just identified. They're fiercely protected, pursued with focus.
And the flip side, low-value stuff.
Systematically identified and eliminated. Time wasters, distractions. This conscious curation of time drastically reduces wasted effort, boosts productivity, accelerates progress towards your goals.
So it's about investing your time, not just spending it.
Precisely. When every minute is considered an investment, you become a meticulous curator of your schedule, making sure your time yields maximum returns. It's not about being busy. It's about being strategically effective, disciplined with the one resource we all have the same amount of.
Okay, next habit. This one seems obvious maybe. Saving and investing.
Ah, yes. And this is where the contrast between the two mindsets gets really vivid, really stark.
How does the source frame it?
Perfectly. Says when extra money comes in, maybe unexpected money. The poverty mindset instinctively asks, what can I buy? How can I get some immediate gratification? Make this moment better right now.
Right, the urge to spend it.
Whereas the wealth mindset asks, how can I grow this? How can I deploy this money so it makes more money for me in the future?
Totally different questions.
Unveils a fundamental divergence in philosophy, doesn't it?
Right.
One is focused on immediate consumption, immediate gratification, often driven by that underlying scarcity fear. Enjoy it now before it disappears.
Okay.
The other, the wealth mindset, is profoundly focused on long-term growth, leverage, delayed gratification, understanding that patience and consistent investment lead to exponential benefits.
Compounding again.
Exactly. This single habit, consistently applied, it creates monumental differences over time. Even small amounts, regularly saved and invested, harness that incredible power of compounding. It shifts you from a cycle of spending to a deliberate, strategic process of growing resources.
So you start thinking like an investor, not just a consumer.
That's the core shift, viewing money not just as something to exchange for stuff, but as a dynamic asset, a seed for future prosperity, future options.
Okay, makes sense. What's the final habit the source highlights? This one surprised me a bit.
Let me guess. Health.
Yes, health. It often gets overlooked in purely financial discussions, doesn't it? But the source calls it absolutely foundational.
It really is.
The material makes this direct, undeniable link. A productive mind needs a healthy body. Exercise, eat well, sleep enough. It's not just a nice to have.
Not at all. It's a non-negotiable pillar. And the link is physiological, intrinsic, between physical well-being and peak mental sharpness.
How so?
A healthy body gives you the energy for sustained focus, the emotional resilience to handle setbacks, the cognitive clarity for good decision-making, all critical for wealth creation.
Right. If you're constantly tired or stressed.
Your cognitive functions are impaired, your ability to concentrate, to solve problems creatively, to learn, to endure through challenges, it's all diminished.
Well, so taking care of your health is actually a strategic investment.
A strategic, long-term investment in your primary asset, yourself, your mind and body. It's the high-performance engine that lets all the other wealth-building habits run optimally.
Wow. Okay, so we've got reading, learning, time management, saving, investing, and health. Powerful stuff.
Foundational habits.
So as you, our listener, are absorbing all this, think about it. What's one small, manageable step you could take? Just one. To start incorporating one of these habits into your day. Starting today, maybe tomorrow.
Not a massive overhaul, just one tiny conscious choice.
Because that's how the journey begins right now. While our habits are definitely shaped by our choices, we're also profoundly shaped, often subconsciously, by what's around us, our environment.
Ah, yes, the power of environment. That's huge.
This leads us to a really powerful segment. It kicks off with that classic adage one many of us have heard.
Show me your friends.
And I'll show you your future.
Yeah, a statement that cuts right to the core of social influence. Suggests our social ecosystem is way more than just background noise. And it's deeply rooted in psychology, isn't it? Social proof, mirroring. You could call it social osmosis.
Social osmosis, I like that.
We are, to an incredible degree, creatures of our environment. The beliefs, the attitudes, the conversations, the aspirations, even the habits of those closest to us, they inevitably seep in.
Subtly shaping our worldview.
Subtly but powerfully.
Yeah.
And this constant social input can either dramatically expand our potential, challenge us to grow,
Or limit us.
or subtly, persistently limit us. Reinforce negative narratives,
Yeah.
discourage initiative. We tend to adapt, often unconsciously, to the currents and expectations of our social circles.
So if your circle is always complaining about money,
It's exponentially harder for you to maintain an optimistic financial outlook, even if your own situation is okay. It's a powerful, almost invisible form of programming.
and our source material illustrates this brilliantly. Two contrasting scenarios. First, the negative environment. Here, you're regularly surrounded by phrases like, there are no good jobs out there, or it's impossible to succeed, the economy's rigged, or maybe the system's broken, why even bother trying?
Yeah, that constant drumbeat of negativity.
And the source issues this stark warning. Immerse yourself in that. Sooner or later, you will start to believe it too.
It's insidious. And that kind of chronic negativity, it's not just demoralizing. It actively constructs self-imposed limitations, fosters that fixed mindset Carol Dweck talks about.
How does it do that?
It subconsciously programs you to focus on obstacles, not solutions.
Ah.
When your subconscious is constantly fed these disempowering messages, it starts looking for evidence to confirm them, creating this self-reinforcing loop of cynicism, helplessness, inaction.
Learned helplessness, even.
It can definitely lead to that. Giving up because you believe effort is futile.
Okay, that's bleak, but then pivot to the positive environment.
On the flip side,
A space where you deliberately surround yourself with, quote, ambitious, positive people. What happens then?
the source says it simply, you'll naturally grow, almost effortlessly.
Seems too simple, but...
But the effect is profound, and the psychology explains why. In that environment, your subconscious programming gets a radical upgrade. You're constantly exposed to different ideas, innovative ways to solve problems, a pervasive belief in possibility, in growth. This directly fosters a growth mindset,
Encouraging initiative.
building resilience, promoting a proactive, solution-oriented approach. You become more inclined to take calculated risks, bounce back faster from setbacks, continuously seek improvement, because that's the norm in your tribe.
Like planting a seed in good soil versus bad.
Exactly. The seed's potential is unlocked and maximized when the conditions are right. You literally start mirroring the success patterns you see.
Okay, but here's a practical challenge. A listener might say, look, that sounds great, but I genuinely can't find those kinds of people in my immediate physical world.
Yeah, my neighborhood, my workplace, my family, they're not like that.
It's a totally valid point. Not everyone lives near a hub of innovators. So what's the solution then? Are you stuck?
Not according to our source. It offers this incredibly powerful democratic solution. Go online.
Curate your digital environment.
Precisely. It's not about escaping reality. It's about actively, intentionally curating your mental environment. The source points to this treasure trove. Podcasts,
Like this one.
hopefully. Online communities, virtual mentors, books, online courses. All accessible, regardless of your physical location, your income, your immediate circumstances.
So you become the editor of your own informational diet.
You become the conscious editor, strategically choosing the voices, the perspectives, the insights, the encouragement you allow into your mental space, shaping your beliefs, attitudes, aspirations in a way previous generations just couldn't. It democratizes access to positive influence.
That's huge. And this leads to this really crucial distinction, a powerful statement from the source I think is worth repeating.
Wow.
Your mental environment matters more than your physical environment.
Bold claim, right? But it makes so much sense when you think about it.
Unpack that for us. Why more important?
Well, it highlights the primacy of the internal landscape. Sure, Your physical surroundings influence mood, energy, comfort. The internal landscape, that tapestry of ideas, influences information you consume that's ultimately far more potent in determining your mindset, your decisions, your life trajectory.
So you could be in a beautiful place but still feel stuck.
Absolutely. Luxurious setting, but if your mind is saturated with negative thoughts, limiting beliefs, cynical influences, your potential stays stifled. Your growth is inhibited.
And the reverse.
Conversely, someone navigating a really challenging physical environment, but meticulously cultivating a robust, positive, growth-oriented mental environment, they're exponentially more likely to innovate, persevere, find a way forward. You are the ultimate architect of your internal world. And that world wields more power over your future than any external circumstance.
Wow. Okay. So even with the best habits, the most supportive mental environment, challenges still happen, right? Setbacks are inevitable.
Absolutely. An intrinsic part of life, part of any journey worth taking.
So the question becomes, how does a wealth mindset not just face these moments, but actually leverage them? This brings us to failure.
Failure. Big, scary word.
Yeah, for so many people, it carries this really heavy psychological weight, doesn't it?
Totally. Images of defeat, disappointment, humiliation, a definitive, crushing end.
And the fear of it can be paralyzing, can stop you from even starting. The fear becomes a bigger barrier than the actual potential failure.
And this is precisely where the wealth mindset carves out another huge fundamental difference from a scarcity or poverty mindset.
How do they see failure differently?
What's profoundly fascinating is that truly wealthy individuals, again, in the broadest sense, they perceive failure not as that definitive end, not as a personal indictment,
But as
an integral, often necessary, and ultimately invaluable part of the learning and growth process.
invaluable. How?
They don't shy away from it. They understand its vital role in iteration, in discovery. It's not just a different outlook. It's a fundamental difference in perception that unlocks resilience, fosters experimentation, accelerates progress.
Our source material uses that incredible story of Thomas Edison to illustrate this.
A light bulb guy.
Yeah. He conducted, over 1,000 experiments? Some sources say way more, like 10,000?
Yeah, an insane number of attempts before hitting on the commercially viable light bulb.
Can you even imagine that level of persistence? If we applied our usual fear-based definition of failure to each one of those attempts.
You'd stop after 10, maybe. It would seem not just insurmountable, but utterly absurd to keep going.
So how did he maintain that perspective, that motivation, through all those unsuccessful tries?
Well, when people asked him, how could you stand failing so many times? He gave that profound insight. Our source highlights it as key to this mindset.
What did he say?
He said, I didn't fail 1,000 times. I discovered 1,000 ways that don't work.
Discovered ways that don't work.
See, that reframing is everything. It's not just clever words. It fundamentally shifts the entire emotional, cognitive, practical response to a setback.
So a failure isn't a personal failing.
No, it's instantly transformed into invaluable data. Each attempt, whether it hit the goal or not, becomes a critical piece of information, a step forward in understanding the problem, narrowing down what needs to happen. It's not defeat. It's systematic discovery.
Eliminating the wrong paths to find the right one.
Exactly. Progressively getting closer to the solution.
So the powerful takeaway here isn't about somehow avoiding failure, which is impossible anyway.
Right.
It's about fundamentally changing our relationship with it. Our source reinforces this. Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is part of success.
It's not an obstacle. It's an indispensable component of the journey itself.
Yeah.
And if you connect that to learning, to innovation, every failed attempt demonstrably brings you closer to the right one. By systematically eliminating what's wrong.
It refines your methods, deepens understanding.
Sharpens your strategy. This perspective cultivates incredible resilience because you're not paralyzed by the fear of failing anymore.
Right.
You're just engaged in a necessary process. Gather data, iterate, refine.
It encourages experimentation, takes the pressure off perfectionism.
Completely dismantles the paralysis of perfectionism, which so often stifles creativity and action. When failure is consciously seen as a stepping stone, not a terminal stumbling block, you're far more likely to act. Knowing even a misstep provides learning that propels you forward.
It's like applying the scientific method to your life.
That's a great way to put it, to personal and professional challenges.
So, thinking about this, I want to ask you, the listener, directly. How might you look back At some past experience, you may be instinctively labeled a failure.
Mm-hmm.
And now, using this Edison lens, reinterpret it. Can you see it differently? Not as defeat or inadequacy,
But as discovery.
but as a discovery, a concrete revelation of what doesn't work, which actually moved you closer to what will.
It's a powerful, liberating shift. Can unlock so much future potential.
Okay, so with this resilience, this learning mindset, you can navigate setbacks. But it begs the bigger question. What's it all ultimately for?
Yeah, the purpose behind it all.
What is the profound ultimate aim of cultivating this whole wealth mindset?
Where does it lead?
This brings us to what our source provocatively calls the ultimate secret.
Ooh, a secret.
And it's a concept that might initially seem counterintuitive, maybe even paradoxical.
Okay, what is it?
The secret is, money itself is not the ultimate goal.
That is counterintuitive for a discussion on the wealth mindset.
Right, but what's insightful is how central this idea is to a genuine, robust wealth mindset.
Why is that? Why isn't money the goal?
Because if money is pursued as the sole, ultimate end, it almost invariably becomes an empty, unsatisfying pursuit.
A hollow chase.
Yeah, where no amount ever feels like enough. The goalposts keep shifting, real satisfaction remains elusive, accumulating for its own sake without deeper purpose often leaves this profound void, because it doesn't address our fundamental human needs for meaning, connection, impact.
So this perspective separates shallow materialism from something deeper, a purpose-driven approach to resources.
Exactly. Our source clearly outlines these two contrasting views on money's role. The poverty mindset, often rooted in scarcity, frequently sees money as the end goal itself.
The magic bullet.
Yeah. The thing that will finally solve all problems, finally make everything okay. The narrative is often, if only I had more money then.
Then I'd be happy.
Mm.
Then my worries would vanish.
Right, but what are the implications of seeing it that way?
Well, if money is the ultimate end, it inherently becomes a source of anxiety, right? Both in chasing it and in fearing its loss.
Constantly worried about not having enough or losing what you have.
Which can lead to choices driven by fear, by short-term fixes, rather than strategic opportunity or long-term vision. And like you said, chasing accumulation for its own sake often ends in dissatisfaction because it misses those deeper human needs.
Okay, so how does the wealth mindset see money then?
The wealth mindset, in stark contrast, sees money unequivocally as a tool.
A tool, not the end goal.
A powerful means to an end. A versatile lever for achieving something much greater, something aligned with your deepest values, your aspirations.
And that subtle shift, seeing it as utility versus acquisition, changes everything.
Fundamentally changes everything about its pursuit and its potential impact.
And the source really expands on what money can be a tool for, some incredible purpose-driven possibilities.
Like what?
First, an indispensable tool for freedom.
Freedom.
Okay. In what sense? Genuine freedom of time, choosing how you spend your most precious resource. Freedom of choice, saying yes to opportunities, no to obligations that don't fit. Freedom of location, living and working where you thrive. And crucially, the freedom to pursue your passions without that crushing financial weight.
That's huge. What else?
A tool for creating.
Creating. Like art.
Could be. But also enabling innovation. It's the capital to build businesses, launch initiatives, develop new products, fund research, contribute tangible, lasting value.
So translating ideas into reality. Solving problems on a bigger scale.
Exactly. Fueling the entrepreneurial spirit. Driving progress.
Makes sense. More.
A potent tool for living life fully.
Okay, what does fully mean here?
It covers a wide spectrum. Accessing education, transformative travel, investing deeply in your own personal growth,
Right.
Really curating a meaningful life aligned with your core values.
So maximizing the human experience holistically, not just financially.
Exactly. Physically, intellectual, emotionally, spiritually.
Okay. Freedom, creating, living fully. Is there one more?
Yes. And perhaps the most profound, helping others.
Philanthropy and impact.
Money, seen through this lens, becomes an extraordinary tool for giving back, supporting your community, creating opportunities for people who lack access, making a significant, positive, enduring impact far beyond your own life.
Channeling resources towards collective good, systemic change. That's where wealth transcends the individual, becomes a force for broader transformation.
Exactly. So, as you listening internalize these ideas, I want you to ask yourself, really reflect. Do you want money just to see numbers in an account? To amass a bigger sum just for the sake of it, for some vague sense of security?
Right.
Or do you desire money for what it enables? To build that dream you hold, to travel, to help others in a meaningful way, to live with real freedom, purpose, impact.
It's not just rhetorical, is it? It's an invitation for deep, honest reflection on your ultimate why.
Finding that why shifts the focus, doesn't it? From potential greed to purpose, contribution, impact. It makes the pursuit itself more meaningful, more fulfilling.
Absolutely.
Wow, we've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, really peeled back the layers on what it truly means to cultivate and embody a wealth mindset.
It's been a deep dive for sure.
So as we bring this to a close, let's just quickly recap the journey we took.
Good idea.
We started by exploring those fundamental differences. Poverty mindset versus wealth mindset. Fear and scarcity versus creativity and abundance.
Right, the core dichotomy.
Then we saw how fleeting thoughts can harden into beliefs, how those beliefs shape decisions, and how decisions create our destiny. The architecture of belief.
Thought, belief, decisions, future.
Yeah. Then we unpacked those consistent daily habits. Reading, time management, saving, investing, health. Proving wealth is built, not found.
Small, consistent actions. Compounding.
We recognize the profound impact of our environment, especially our mental environment, curated consciously.
Show me your friends or your podcasts.
Exactly. Then we tackled failure, reframing it with Edison's help, not as an end, but as vital discovery, part of success itself.
Learning what doesn't work is progress.
And finally, we redefined money, not as the goal, but as that powerful tool.
A tool for freedom, creation, living fully, and helping others.
Yeah.
And a key insight through all of this, I think, is that you don't just get money in a vacuum. You don't chase it as an isolated target. You cultivate wealth by nurturing the habits that build it, by curating environments that support it, by embracing a mindset of resilience that lets you adapt and rebuild. These are internal assets, way more valuable and lasting than any dollar amount.
That leads perfectly to the critical takeaway. The unshakable foundation.
Which is?
Money. Tangible money. It might fluctuate, markets go up and down, circumstances change, challenges pop up.
Always.
But the wealth mindset itself, that robust, internal, resilient asset, once you cultivate it, really ingrain it, it will always empower you to rebuild, adapt, innovate, navigate whatever comes your way.
It's the ultimate internal compass.
An unfailing guide towards purpose, towards prosperity, no matter the external volatility.
So thinking about all this, integrating these insights, it raises an immediate question for you, our listener. Something to really ponder. What's one specific negative belief, just one, that you will consciously choose to let go of, to start dismantling, starting right now, in this moment?
Ooh, powerful question. And building right on that, what's one concrete, positive, small habit you'll commit to beginning this week? Just one tiny, deliberate step forward to actively cultivate and reinforce your own wealth mindset.
Answering those two questions. And more importantly, actually taking that first small step. It's not just a mental exercise, is it?
No, it's the start.
It's the profound beginning, actively transforming your mind into this incredibly powerful engine. An engine for a life of purpose, genuine abundance, profound impact.
An impact way beyond just the financial figures.
Far beyond. The real enduring wealth, ultimately. It lies not just in what you possess, but in the extraordinary person you become through this whole deliberate, mindful cultivation process.